We're honored to be joined by Eric Boehlert, who is the editor and founder of Press Run Media. Eric, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Describe Press Run Media and we'll put up the website as you do that.
Sure. Press Run is a newsletter I started. It's published 3 days a week. It's what I call a proudly progressive look at the political press, dissecting how the administration is covered, what's getting overlooked, double standards, things like that. Also looking, I spent many years at Media Matters, so I have long history in terms of monitoring the right-wing media and misinformation and all of that.
As a regular reader of the e-blasts that I get from Press Run Media, one of the themes that I've been picking up, and I want you to talk about this, too many of us in the media, and I'm not sure if that means those of us in public broadcasting, are obsessed with Donald Trump. And I think you just had a piece that said, why is the New York Times continuing? We're taping this at the end of January 2020. The New York Times keeps interviewing Trump supporters. What's up with that? What's wrong with it, A, and what do you think the obsession's about?
What's wrong with it is the lack of context and lack of proportion, and where are all the Biden voter stories? I'll get to that in a minute. But this really started right after Trump won his surprise victory. Most people were surprised he won. And I think a lot of the mainstream media was embarrassed and shocked. And so the way they compensated is they just flooded these red states with reporters, and it became a running joke on Twitter in terms of these diner interviews. I don't know how many New York Times articles it ran from 2016 to 2020, in Ohio diners, Wisconsin diners, Iowa diners. And it was, tell us how much you love Trump. Tell us how much you love Trump. This is when he's polling at 36%, 37%. And so they continue to do it. And my problem is it elevates, white rural voters as the most important people in America. As a voting bloc, they're not especially important. But to me, it was the press saying, oh, we missed this big story. Now we're going to overcompensate and just shower these people with attention. And then the flip side, where are the Biden voter stories? Biden won 80 million votes. He got more votes than any president in our history. I don't see lots of stories of Biden voter stories and how much they love Joe Biden.
But let me push back this way, Eric,
yeah,
in the effort to play devil's advocate, if you will, because as you know, and for those of us in public broadcasting, unlike some of our colleagues in the media, we actually have no horse in the race. We just want to try to make sense of all this. But let me ask you this. That was the election.
Yeah.
November 2020, and last time I checked, the big lie is still a lie. Mm-hmm. That being said, is the media doing across the board, and the media monolithic entity, not really accurate, in terms of President Biden's, as I'm a student of leadership,
yeah,
many argue legitimately that he's failing on the leadership front on lots of levels. How are we doing in the media across the board, covering not just how and where the president is falling short, but what he needs to do to improve things?
Look, as a liberal, I have no qualms with any Democrat being criticized. And the difference, I think, a liberal critique of the press versus the right-wing critique of the press was, you can't touch him. You can't say anything about Trump. Right. Any leader should be held accountable. I think there's a double standard. Look, the Biden and the testing.
What is it?
I think the government should have had way more tests, ready for the next variant. So that's perfectly fine. I think the double standard is, in terms of failed leadership, if we want to talk about COVID, for instance, the press, I see these stories, the year-end stories, Biden 1 year into this, why hasn't he fixed COVID? There's virtually no context for any of the reporting that we have an entire Republican Party, we have an entire Fox News network, we have an entire right-wing media that is committed to interfering with the vaccine. It's committed to not getting people vaccinated. Joe Biden is the only leader on the planet who has to face such an organized and powerful force in terms of don't get vaccinated. Turn on Fox News, they'll tell you the vaccine might get you killed. So I understand people are frustrated the vaccination rate in the U.S. is only 60%. Everyone wishes it was 80%.
As we speak, and I wish I were to say if this aired in a month or 2 months, it would be dramatically higher. But the trend, it's not. But here's the pushback, Eric. You're saying that the job is hard. You're saying that President, okay, But should that change the way that we in the media ask tough questions, analyze, try to make should it change any of that?
Sure. Another point I will make: the job is hard. He is facing a lot of crisis. It's a tough job right now. But again, so a lot of the 1 year anniversary, Biden came into office a year ago. Well, he can't get his legislation passed. Why can't he create a working relationship with half a dozen moderate Republicans?
Right.
Biden's been in the Senate, his whole life. This is not your father's or grandfather's Republican Party. This is a Republican Party that is committed 100% to obstructing a Democrat. And I'll give you a perfect example. COVID relief passed last year. That had a public approval rating of 80, 90%. Unheard of to have bipartisan support for any piece of legislation these days. Every Republican in the House, every Republican in the Senate voted no. How is Joe Biden supposed to carve out this bipartisan niche if you have an entire Republican Party it seems to be their only goal is to make Joe Biden fail? And if that means prolonging a pandemic, I think they're willing to do that.
But again, by the way, Eric has been so good to stay another segment with us. We're going to end this segment in just about 30 seconds. But I also want to talk about media coverage of January 6th, the implications of that, and a series we're doing called Democracy at a Crossroads. P.S. What's the role in the media in promoting and supporting a free country, a democracy that's working? Real quick before I let you go.
Yeah.
Role of public broadcasting, 30 seconds. Are we different from everyone else, and should we be different?
Yes, I think you are different from everyone else, and you should be different. Honestly, you should be better because you don't have, in theory, you don't have that clickbait. I know everyone wants to get ratings. I know everyone in public broadcasting wants to be successful, but you don't have that driving, demand to put up numbers, to put up this, to get those click rates. So in my theory, public broadcasting has a bit of a extra layer of comfort. And they should be even better and more aggressive, and I hope they always are.
Yeah, as long as the funding's in place. That's another story.
Listen, Eric.
Yeah, by the way, Eric Boehlert, I want to thank you so much for joining us, editor and founder of Press Run Media. We'll do a separate segment with Eric. Make sure you go on our website, steveadubato.org, to find out where he's going to be talking about more media issues. Eric, thanks so much for joining us, my friend.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by NJM Insurance Group, New Jersey Sharing Network, Summit Health, NJ Best, New Jersey's 529 College Savings Plan, PNC, Grow Up Great, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Fedway Associates, Inc., and by Choose New Jersey. Promotional support provided by Meadowlands Chamber and by New Jersey Globe.
NJM Insurance Company has been serving New Jersey policyholders for more than 100 years. But just who are NJM's policyholders? They're the men and women who teach our children, the public sector employees who maintain our infrastructure, the workers who craft our manufactured goods, and New Jersey's next generation of leaders, the people who make our state a great place to call home. NJM, we've got New Jersey covered.